Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to talk to you about the November 2024 Comprehensive Astrology. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so excited to be coming on and talking about the month of November because yes, it means that we are approaching the end of this calendar year, which for many people is going to be very positive and full of opportunity and really working out some of the previous confusion and previous insecurity. So I'm really excited to be reading for you all about the month of November. I will be talking about the general intuitive insights I'm getting about the month. And I will also put some charts up on the screen and talk through the exact transits that we're having. So yes, let's enjoy this time in live premiere space. Thank you so much to those of you coming to the live premieres on Friday evenings if you have time. If not, these videos will obviously be available on my YouTube channel as well as on the Patreon page, which yes, has free trials if you have been wanting to try out that service. Which has the monthly sign by signs. All of the November readings for each sign will be available over there, as well as week ahead forecasts called T-Chats. So check out the Patreon page linked below. So yes, let's talk about November 2024. It's another crossing point. I'm feeling the Six of Swords intuitively. I'm seeing images of Six of Swords of a lot of the sixes in tarot. It feels like a time where we've passed some type of midpoint or we're beyond a halfway point, perhaps in a difficult story. So there is relief here, but also the knowing that perhaps some challenging things also have to be done during this month. With, however, the added benefit of having things from the past as a mechanism of support. One of the main psychic understandings I've been getting about November 2024, as it is our final month of Pluto in Capricorn. We will be having Pluto move into the sign of Aquarius, which I will talk about in the astrology portion, but that of course will color the entire month as we're having a major change in collective chapter during this month, and I would say over this next 2 or 3 months, as I've gotten intuitively that it won't be until February 2025 that we really are stepping totally out of the Pluto and Capricorn energy. It may still linger or echo a little bit as Pluto moves so slowly for the next few months. However, nonetheless, we will be having in November the exact change, meaning that we're going to understand in November that some long-running element, perhaps since 2008, okay, so the last 15 or 16 years, there's going to be some type of long-running chapter changing this month and over this next general medium-term timeline in our lives. Preconceived notions we've had for a long time, self-concept, okay, self-image, okay, ego, all of that very Plutonian life structure, life psychological structure will begin to change here. And by the end of November, we will recognize that there is also a new version of ourselves beginning to come out, and also a new sort of collective backdrop or new collective setting in which it can express itself. This to me is very beautiful and very opportune for people who have been wanting a transformation. We have Pluto changing signs for the very final time throughout its retrograde cycle during Scorpio season. Pluto is ruled by Scorpio. So what are the odds that also the sun would be, the transiting sun would be exactly sextile Pluto, okay, during the time that Pluto changes sign for the last time? There's going to need to be an acknowledgement of how we're changing. This is an ugly time for not paying attention to how you're changing as a person. This is also, I would say, an ugly time to force too much working, as there were so many words coming up for me as I was meditating on November, such as overcomplicating things, overthinking things, overworking, overkill, overdoing. Anything that has over in front of it is very difficult for us here, as we have both Pluto and Saturn very weakly placed in the transits. So 29 anaretic Pluto in Capricorn was very invigorating for some people who had that transit in a beneficial way in their chart, maybe back in like 2021, 2022 time. That was a time where that was, just queuing up, and some of the energy and sort of deep earth almost like the deepest point of the earth is how I feel with that Pluto and Capricorn anaretic degree. It's like your connection, your groundedness, your material relevance to the timeline and to the location, the geography that you're in. That would have really peaked back then. And as we're experiencing the final pass, again, Capricorn is like the elder. It really is the final human sign to me, as Aquarius and Pisces in the zodiac are kind of, I like to say, like robots and aliens. So when you have the furthest out planet placed in the oldest human sign of the zodiac at the final degree of that sign, it's a very old energy. So the positives of that are wisdom, and perhaps in some cases economic, financial, or material capacity or power. Also, a lot of maybe aging of the body as well, or, things have been working for such a long time that they have perhaps gained some aging or wear and tear. Although, on the other hand, the wisdom quotient and the understanding of the earth plane and the way it functions after living a long life become really wonderful advantages. Those were like the positives and negatives of that transit. Well, here, as it's on the final time, it's like a little bit disempowered, and it's not functioning with that same invigoration that it had before. So it still has some type of power. This is a period of time where batons start to pass and people who have been waiting in the wings begin to queue up, and we're going to see like a big change on the world stage and a big change on power structures and power dynamics as like people who have not been there before start to succeed or start to step into a position. And in our own personal lives, there's some element of that happening too, like the long-running philosophies that we've had, the long-running incomes that we've had, the long-running property or generational mindsets, generational heritage-oriented material elements of our lives. All of that is going to begin to take on a different tone, and there may be some type of baton that's passing. So November is very much a rite of passage, okay? That's why I'm definitely seeing the Six of Swords. And for some people also, it could be kind of feeling like a Ten of Swords moment, or it could also be feeling like the World, okay, if I'm thinking of tarot archetypes. In the positive sense, it would be more of like Six of Swords or the World, where we're, in the sense that the Six of Swords could be positive. It's not always a positive archetype, but the positive of it would be like, okay, we're drifting away from what was hard and we're moving towards something that we're more hopeful about, even if what we're moving in, the boat, in the Six of Swords is kind of maybe not in the best shape. We have hope because we're moving towards a more calmer, where this time can feel hopeful, in that rite of passage towards a more appropriate or more hopeful horizon. Where this month can be hard is it's a definite conclusion, okay? We don't maybe look back. There's definitely sort of like a Lot's wife syndrome going on during this time, where people are obsessed with the previous stories, where people are unwilling to leave something even though they know that it's in the process of destruction, or they know that it's beginning to collapse or fail. Almost like the captain on the Titanic or Lot's wife. Okay, there is a refusal to leave something for some people that they know can't work. So I would definitely recommend looking into that, as I feel that this could be like a collective issue that a lot of people are facing. Do some self-study. Okay, is there anything that I'm refusing to step away from that could inherently be like a sinking ship of some kind? We have water trines coming from October, and now we have the sun in Scorpio. It's going to really create an alchemy with the wood dragon year, as well as, the exact sextile between the sun and Pluto as Pluto changes sign for the final time. This could, to some people could interpret this as like an apocalyptic kind of energy. I wouldn't necessarily put that label or category onto it, but for people who are sensitive to that kind of symbolism, it might seem like that here, because this is where people have to leave things that are in the process of destruction, and they're charged with not looking back sometimes, or not fearing the road in front of them, and trusting also that the structure or the bridge that is crossing them from that previous failing energy to the next hopeful horizon will function and work. Again, very Six of Swords. So this is a time, one of the things that I had written down for this month ahead, where something that has been done before can empower you now. Almost if you could imagine like loading up your ship or your boat with like all of your resources and savings that you've saved for a long time and getting out of Dodge for some people is kind of the feeling here. And it's like, even though maybe you're leaving behind a context from before, there's something that is also functioning from the past, even if it's not a material thing. That's what I feel intuitively for November 2024 is one of the most important things that we can implement, is in some way things that have been done from the past are more valuable than we give them credit for. And they're going to support us more than we might realize too. So here's a very painful month for demeaning that which you have, or not trusting that it's enough, or even coming out with something that you think is less valuable, maybe choosing to believe that's more valuable than you've been believing it is. There's something about our value construct which would transform during Scorpio season of 2024. We might have to value certain resources that we have more, or we might also have to trust sometimes in having less, or we might have to trust that during a liminal phase, and I've been talking about this a lot on Patreon in the Sign by Signs for October, and it's coming up in November too, like how to cope with being in a liminal phase or a bridge, or, between two worlds, how to thrive through that, and how to trust and grow our spiritual wellness during that bridge. That's something I'm talking about a lot on Patreon. That's linked below. But yes, it's a very important talent and skill to grow during November of 2024, is like being between things and not having everything perfectly, and not allowing discouragement or illusions of powerlessness to permeate your psyche when surrounding material issues are not exactly how you wish that they were. This is so important for this period of time, because I'm seeing a lot of people really demand that their material surroundings and that their material situation be very exact expectations in shadow in the month of November 2024. And this can undermine the point of this period of time, which is a lesson about facing something that is not yet here. So meaning that, when you're in that boat, when you're in that Six of Swords archetype and you're crossing something, you don't have a guarantee of getting to the other side, but you trust it and you keep pushing forward. I see some people being very psychically debilitated by this sense of not being there yet, or by the sense of not having reached the other side of something. Not yet being able to retire, not yet being able to buy a house, not yet being able to be in that new horizon. And through that unwillingness to accept the liminal phase that they're in, or the bridge phase that they're in, or the turbulent waters, they don't enjoy the thrill of gaining the ability to steer this ship, or the ability to cross this, or the ability, which is an important ability, to sustain efforts. Okay, so sustaining some type of movement. Imagine you're like paddling a boat across quite a long channel. It might feel okay at first, but this is kind of like the Nine of Wands in tarot, which is where, we're at like the final part of the marathon, and this is where it's really, really a challenge. We've already gone most of the distance, but we're not to the finish line yet. It's a lesson in endurance. It's a part of this paradigm, I would say, that we're in through most of 2025, as well, is like some degree of endurance, and having to like make sure that you're not sprinting during the marathon, and having to like really work with your external energy in a way that is more measured and less climactic. So keep an eye on this in November 2024. I feel like this has been one of the energetic knots that has plagued this entire year cycle, has been an overclimactic kind of mental, ethereal space, and in some cases it happens in a physical way. But a lot of energy kind of gets drained off when we're thinking too much about climactic events or sensational events in our lives. There's been a really big growth of visualizing the sensational or visualizing the really big events. And something that the Wood Dragon year has been helping me to understand a lot is the value of serenity and the value of peace. And also that these like really climactic events, they're not meant to be things that happen every day. The climax of the story is something that gets charged through the more quiet elements and through the more mundane progressions. So slowly things build up. You don't want to put too many build-ups unnecessarily, otherwise you get like the sort of bipolar peaks and valley kind of life experience. And this is something that can get like really out of hand in November, as Scorpio season in general is a climactic energy a lot of the time. But this year it's going to be about subtlety. Okay, Scorpio is going to operate in a very subtle way this year because of the accompaniment of the sun with Pluto by sextile angle out of Capricorn and into Aquarius. It's going to very subtly and perhaps in an etheric or like ethereal way change some of the collective dynamics in a way that is more favorable to easy progress and easy movements. It's not going to be tyrannical. It's not going to be extreme. It's not going to be with a temper, as those can be like also qualities of Scorpio this year with the Wood Dragon context, with the water trines that we've had, with the greater lack of fire energy in general that we've had over 2023 and 2024. It's going to operate in its more subtle, icy Plutonian way, and it's going to be through undercurrents. It's going to be through the ether. It's going to be through the outcomes that favor us unexpectedly. So, yes, there is a growth of fire energy coming also in November, which I'm going to talk about in a second with the charts, but it's still kind of outweighed by the more subtle feminine. Now, another thing that I'm getting for November 2024 is mindsets on resources and conservation. Okay, there should be a further reduction or lessening of the consumption of resources at an individual level in order to survive this time. So we may have to reduce our budgets further. We may have to take certain austerity measures, or we may have to, unless we want to live like a debt lifestyle, or unless we want to spend from our future, it feels that most elements of our consumption or our spending may have to be reduced. And this could absolutely tie in a very positive way with this message of subtlety and with this message. You see, this is like harmony, right? Whereas if we're in that very climactic energy, that very bipolar, peaks and valley, angry, constantly having conflicts or constantly like expressing adversarial opinions or constantly thinking about the people who are against us, as this is very easy during this time too. This I feel would harmonize more with overconsumption. This would harmonize more with overspending, overthinking, overdoing, overkill. And where's the energy going? Well, into a deficit. So you can kind of keep an eye in your own life as to where the energies are harmonizing at a level of frequency like this. So like where you see the peaks and valleys, that's where you're going to see the deficits. That's where you're going to see the lack of energy. That's where you're going to see the drain. And then where you see the sort of like quiet, powerful, serene, peaceful energy, that's where you're going to see also like reduced consumption and getting ahead and, gaining more energy inside instead of desperately seeking it on the external. And that's where you're going to see the people who are getting the batons also passed to them, at least in a more lasting way, okay? So to clarify that, people will also be getting batons who are very volatile, but it may not last in the same way, or it may not carry the same capacity. So the conversation about capable holding of personal capacity and power is going to be a conversation about serenity, quiet progress, and reservation, and also in a lot of cases continuing to reduce or in some cases like deflate or decrease the output. All right. Which ties me also into something I'd written down, diligent rest, pulling things back, and measuring expectations. We get really connected to these peaks and valleys when our expectations are just out of proportion. It leads us to sometimes feel like we have to prove something, or we have to show people who we are, and that we're getting into ego here. We're getting into the problematic, shadowy Scorpio stuff. I have an expectation to achieve this, therefore I'm going to create a face, or I'm going to create a certain projection that makes sense for it, and I'm going to commandeer my resources, and I'm just going to, do whatever it takes to get something. I really advise against this version of Scorpio energy during 2024. It would have already in 2023 kind of depleted a lot of your resources to be on that type of wavelength. And 2024 then might have been sort of like a, paycheck to paycheck, or, event by event, sort of like in the weeds or stuck in the wilderness, rather than, rising above things. So we can still pivot that here and start to come out more strategically and work smarter instead of harder during this time now, by embracing more serenity. So emotional maturation through serenity. Okay. I mean, that might be what I titled this video, emotional maturation through serenity. That is like really the most powerful way that I can articulate the potential of this time, but it's really one of the only potentials of this time. So that's not, making millions of dollars. That's not, finally getting closure with that person. That's not seeing someone else go through a karma you feel like they deserve. That's emotional maturity through serenity. And it's not sometimes something that is externally as visible as we'd like it to be, but it's something that you feel on the inside, and it's something that replenishes your internal resources in a similar way that having like a powerful, or I would say meaningful spiritual practice can. So I see that too with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, bolstering the meaning of your spiritual practice, definitely religious movements, or people converting religions, or just moving more into religious considerations here, because it's exactly harmonious and in that same type of sphere. Okay. Now, something is also right about what is happening during November of 2024. So observe that. Are you called to move during this time? Are you moving? Are you restructuring some element of your life, or redoing some type of philosophy or mindset that you have? Is there someone who now wants to be around you, or someone who now doesn't want to be around you? Something's right about it. Try to not overthink it, okay? And finally, before we get into the astrology, one of the main intuitive messages I was getting is that there has to be a quick resolution of dysfunction and friction. Don't string problems out, okay? Simple way to put things verbatim there, as people do kind of like stretch things out here, and they really get into the problems. They really think about them. They really, you see, that's already getting old after the Jupiter-Saturn squares, and we just have to sometimes take resolute action rather than stringing things out and getting, into that volatile peaks and valley energy, trying to decide what is and is not relevant about our lives. And it's just like sometimes a maze. Try to just, go up instead of through, I think. Know when to throw the hands up as well. Know when to be done with things. Know when to know about strategic surrenders, strategic loss harvesting, strategic lessening and reduction. And especially if that augments your sense of serenity and emotional maturity, and steps away from that sort of more volatile peak and valley experience. Let's talk about the astrology for November of 2024. I'm going to pull these charts up. Okay. While we are still in the sort of residual effect of the yin overabundance and all of the water and earth energy of 2023 and 2024, we are getting quite an injection of fire and air this month. We have Venus in Sagittarius, as we enter November, which I really like to see that. That's going to offset some of the burdens of this time and going to give us a little bit of excitement and enthusiasm. It's nice for kinship. It's nice for romance. It's nice for growing closer to people, though perhaps new romance is not super advisable with the debilitated Mars. We've just come from Venus in Scorpio as well in October. So it's a good time for camaraderie, more so than it is for romance. We also have Mars entering Leo on November 3rd. So immediately Mars and Venus are in a much better place, although Mars will be going retrograde, yes, but it's not in the beginning of the month there. So we have Venus and Mars in fire signs. New flings could start up, or new flames, or there could be some type of new passion project, or some type of something that you really love could be in front of you. It seems like a nice time for moving, or a nice time for just going with your desire and going with your gut feeling. What you want could be good here. But yes, it is offset by a trine between the Sun and Saturn and Scorpio and Pisces on the 4th. So on like the 3rd, Mars moves into Leo, and then right on the 4th, we have that really watery trine of Sun and Saturn. So that's, again, a little bit conflicted. And, Sun trine Saturn is exactly the opposite of what I'm speaking about. That is like, okay, first of all, it's going to illuminate and help unpackage the mystery of Saturn and Pisces. The sun in Scorpio is very investigative, and it unties knots, and it's really good for understanding the truth about things and for understanding, it's basically like seeing behind the curtain, okay? Like with the Wizard of Oz, like you see how he's moving things, and it's not like an illusion. So there's going to be that kind of thing maybe also in November, but that could also be a little bit of a clash with Mars in Leo, but there will be like just a lot of knowledge downloading in November. And that's why, serene spaces, peaceful, quiet, good to have quiet. Okay. Good to have silence during this time. Something is almost like whispering. Okay. Like there's like a whisper of like a solved puzzle, or a final piece being put into place. The Sun trine Saturn in Scorpio and Pisces is like, I finally put the final piece into that puzzle, and now I have the entire puzzle put together, or now I've solved the riddle, which is going to be really, really relieving for some people. Let's see. Now, we do have a situation of more squares coming up in November too. So Venus is going to square Neptune. That's on November 9th. So that's going to kind of mimic the Jupiter-Saturn squares that were happening in August at a different level. Some of us have like an artistic or projection-oriented conflict. Like I don't maybe stand by how I'm projecting myself in the world anymore. Or like this is where you would see like songwriters or artists changing genres or something. Or like people who have never been in a certain industry trying to make industry changes. Ego changes, ego conflicts, okay? Venus enters Capricorn on November 11th. Venus is very well placed in Capricorn. That is going to help bring us more solid avenues, more solid pathways toward what our vision is, rather than kind of getting stuck with a lack of manifestation. On the 15th of November, Saturn moves direct in Pisces. So I think that that's really an interesting period of time. So basically that, that November 4th through November 15th period of time, between the time where Sun trines retrograde Saturn in Pisces and then Saturn moves direct, that's also during the full moon in Taurus on the 15th of November, Saturn direct and Taurus full moon on the same day. That is going to be a wonderful time of illumination and puzzle solving. So that's the second time that I'm seeing in November that there's an ability to solve a puzzle or some type of knot being unwound and a lot of light being shown, because the sun is a light, right? And that's what is trining Saturn on the 4th. And then the full moon is very illuminating too. And that's happening on the same time as Saturn turns direct. So we're going to learn a lot about the meaning of Saturn and Pisces individually. Okay, I made a video. It was, I think, last week's live premiere was my new reflections on Saturn and Pisces. I'll link that below, as well as my first installment that had segments for each sign. Those will be linked below in the description box. So there's so it might be a good time to listen to those, because you might be able to piece something together. And then also just, again, silence, serenity, puzzle solving. Very, very important for that first half of November. And then, the day after, yes, the sun will oppose Uranus in Taurus. So we'll get a little more information about, these Uranus retrogrades that have been happening. And maybe we can reconcile some of the material density and problems that we were having as a result of Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus back in 2023 and part of 2024. That may unwind during that time. And then, yes, on the 19th of November, we have Pluto moving into Aquarius. Finally, at last, and it's done. It's done in Capricorn, although, as I've said, it won't be until about February that we don't have that energy really circulating as much anymore in such a obvious way. So yes, we will have a very obvious chapter shift happening in the final part of November. There could be some type of macroeconomic shift, or there could be also a different way that we think or feel about the material based on the puzzle solving that we did in those first 2 weeks of November. It will give us maybe a different way to think about Pluto and Aquarius and this next 20 years, which is going to be very antithetical to the way we thought about our material context, our economical context since 2008, okay? This year, the sun enters Sag on November 21st. Yes, that is Sky's birthday. Thank you all for the birthday wishes. Sun goes into Sagittarius on that day. And yes, on that day, we have 4 days left until the 25th of November, when we have a really wild Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. It's going to be a major transit this year. Hit the subscribe button below, as I will make a video about it. Mercury in Sagittarius this year will be all wrapped up in the Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. It will be wrapped up in the Jupiter in Gemini. And of course, the inner planets transiting Sagittarius this year. So that's going to, yes, also bring about a debilitated mutual reception with Jupiter, as we have Mercury in Jupiter's sign debilitated and Jupiter in Mercury's sign debilitated. So we'll have a debilitated mutual reception of Jupiter and Mercury. There could be mass systemic communications failures, okay? Or there could be also just some kind of like information technology issue, or some kind of also at just an individual level, like the way that we're communicating with people is going to change. The way that we're projecting and showing ourselves to the world may change. And there will be also new philosophies coming in, or some kind of like contradiction philosophy as well. So like one philosophy contradicting with another, or some type of communication style contradicting with some type of mass collective psychology or philosophy. So that will permeate a lot of different sectors of society, and we will talk about that in a future video. But yes, finally, November of 2024, we have a lot to get in order, I feel, in those first 2 weeks with the way that the sun and the moon are working with Saturn in Pisces. And we have some ducks to get in a row before the Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius begins. Try to really plan for that, and try to plan for maybe having an easier time. Might be in our interest to work ahead, even to pay things ahead, or to not certainly be cramming or procrastinating at all, especially by the time we hit November 25th and we move up towards December. It's definitely in our interest to have things functioning as easily and sensibly as possible. So anyway, everyone, that's about it for November 2024 Comprehensive Astrology. Thank you so much for being here. Check out those free trials on Patreon, linked in the description box below, as well as other relevant videos. Yes, I am doing live premieres every Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. Eastern time. If you can make it, do come by and say hello, as I will be here, and I will be here certainly throughout, at least my plan, assuming that everything goes well, assuming that YouTube still works and everything with these crazy Mercury retrogrades happening. One probably should not commit to anything during this time, but assuming I'm able to be here, I will be here Fridays leading up towards the holiday season, I believe. And yes, come by and say hello, subscribe to this YouTube channel, hit the thumbs up, and comment below, and let me know how this reading felt to you, and certainly give me any of your opinions that you might have. And I'll see you guys hopefully on Patreon as well. Much love. Have a great month. Bye.